Oh, you thought you weren't going to see me again until Monday. This guy, full of surprises. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to today's Finest for barely still, but still, January 28th, 2018, fueled, as always, by Nerd Teas. Tonight's blend, Strawberry Power-Up. You might notice no natural lighting for this one. We're in an evening setting. It's actually just a couple minutes after 8 p.m. locally. The Royal Rumble's about to start in less than an hour, so we're obviously not going to be talking any wrestling on this episode because one of the biggest premiere events of the year is about to go down in an hour. But that means we've still got plenty to talk about on this episode. But before we get started, let's see that sub count. Ladies and gentlemen, it's high time that I right a wrong. Something that I've been promising for you literally since the start of this series, and that is for me to review The Post. Steven Spielberg directed, Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, talking about the Washington Post and the Pentagon Papers during the Nixon administration in the late 60s and early 70s. Just a quick note, though, on movies, just in general, before we get started here. You're not going to see a ton more movie talk on this particular show, and the reason for that is I'm kind of saving it up because I've kind of got something else that we're working on, and we're trying to get launched here in the not too distant future, which is going to be very movie heavy. So I don't want to kind of dilute the pool, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sort of double dip my chip and talk about movies here and talk about movies there. So you're not actually going to see a ton of movie talk on today's Finest, but I made you guys this promise, and you are going to get my review of The Post. I think the absolute best thing that I could say about this movie is I'm glad that this movie exists for its political relevance and its social relevance, not only of the time, but relevance to today. Now, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy the movie. I did. Tom Hanks is excellent. Spielberg's direction is really good. It's shot in a really interesting way. Really great use of some dynamic camera angles that you don't really see all the time. So it is kind of a treat when you get to see a real master director like Spielberg utilize some of these shots that you don't see every day, almost some shots that you see more in television than you do in movies. It was a real treat to see Spielberg kind of take the chains off directorial-wise and really make a beautiful-looking movie. Hanks is really good. Meryl Streep is really good, but I retain my perspective that Meryl Streep probably should not have been nominated for the Oscar for Best Actress. I think that was a nomination somewhat on performance and somewhat just on the name Meryl Streep. Now, I probably could have done without the multitude of scenes in this movie of self-important people, 95% of the time them being men, just talking over each other, because just as an audience member, I'm just like, I'm not interested in these three people having three similar but different conversations, really just talking to hear themselves talk and talking above the other people, or trying to talk above the other people that are near them and also talking. It was distracting for me as an audience member. But at the same time, I realized that that's exactly what Spielberg, probably aided a little bit by Streep, but exactly what they were trying to go for is that in this world of self-important people, 95% of them being men, all these self-important people, the one lone voice was the strong woman at the head who got to make the decision and made the right decision. And so I get that that's what they were going for, but that particular element of the movie as an audience member, I just found it distracting. The Post is a quiet film. It's somewhat poignant. It's a little bit sad. But it's a reaffirmation, to me anyway, of the sanctity of press freedom. And that goes back in the day and certainly for today as well. I gave it a rating of 80 out of 100. It's definitely worth seeing. Shot in a really nice way. Good performances all around. It's a movie that's definitely worth seeing. It would have made my top 30 best movies of last year had I seen it in enough time. Probably would have been somewhere, probably in the mid-teens. So it definitely would have made it, and I definitely would have talked about it. Didn't see it in enough time, but it is absolutely worth seeing. But Streep's not going to win the Oscar, and this movie's not going to win the Oscar either. Got a couple of comments from the previous video that I just want to touch on a little bit before we get into the main event of what I want to talk about in this, which is why I believe John Tavares will be a Montreal Canadian, and one of the two comments kind of ties into that. But we're going to start with a truly excellent comment from Stephen Coleman, who basically should be my marketing partner at this point. And I actually have my paper here because I want to make sure that I read the comment pretty well exactly the way that he wrote it. The comment from Stephen was, I watch other YouTubers who live in other countries from the United States, i.e. Korea, Japan, and China. They show me what it's like to live there. Well, I've only been across the Ambassador Bridge to Windsor, Ontario a couple of times. So what I'm asking in many of your vlogs is to show me what it's like to live in Nova Scotia. Tell me how the government works, healthcare, stories that aren't in America. Stores that aren't in America. Customs, holidays, even money there and what it looks like. Visit a historic place or even a mall. I want to experience Nova Scotia's history and life there without buying a plane ticket. I need to put you on my payroll, Stephen. Dude, that's such a great idea, and it's something that, dummy, not many people live in Nova Scotia. There's some interesting stuff about this province to talk about. Why are you not doing that? And I don't know why I'm not doing that, but that's a pretty incredible idea, and that's something that I think I should definitely do. Stephen, it's an excellent comment. It's an excellent suggestion. Thank you. Now, for the rest of this video, we're basically going to be talking some CHL, talking some NHL, almost in celebration of the fact that, hey, it's actually All-Star Weekend. I believe the All-Star Game is going on as I'm recording this. This comment comes via Matthew Parker, who had a comment from the previous episode as well. Matthew asks, do you think Marc Bergevin or Claude Julien are more at fault for how the Canadiens' season is going? If you don't follow hockey, Montreal is having a pretty damn bad season this season, and certainly performing way beneath expectations, both fan expectations, media expectations, and just general expectations of how this team would do. First and foremost, I got to get out of the way, my personal philosophy here is that results-based criticism can't go to the coach or the GM in full because they can't be out on the ice. The coach and the GM can't be out on the ice winning faceoffs, forechecking, scoring goals, winning hockey games. So ultimately, results-based criticism has to go on the players, and it has to go on the higher-end players. So we're talking about Max Pacioretty. We're talking about Jonathan Drouin, who we traded a blue-chip prospect defenseman to get in order to generate more offense, and we've basically generated less. So results-based criticism has to go to the players. But one thing that's really frustrating about this team is that basically every night it looks like the lines were formed by Claude Julien rolling dice. And as a player, how are you supposed to build chemistry with line mates when your line mates change every game or two? That's on the coach. That's on the coaching staff. That's something that I think Claude Julien is doing too much of. He's overthinking his line combinations because the team is struggling. He's throwing stuff at the wall and trying to see what sticks, which I get it, but that's what the preseason and the first week or two of the season is for, not games 48, 49, 50, etc. And it is the general manager's imperative to improve a team that is not good enough. And over the last few years, Marc Bergevin has not done that. I don't think Montreal is a better team now than they were 3 years ago. And that's a failure of the general manager. That's a big problem. It's something that does need to be addressed both internally and in the media with the fans. The fans deserve to know, look, what's going on here, because we're not as good as we used to be. It's not just the fact that there's other teams that are getting better. It's that we're getting worse. So basically, do you think Claude Julien or Marc Bergevin's more at fault? I mean, 6 of one, half dozen of another. I mean, everyone is at fault. The players are at fault, the coaching staffs are at fault, and the general manager is at fault. If we assume that the Montreal Canadiens are not heading towards a rebuild, I personally think John Tavares is going to be a Montreal Canadien next season and for a long time to come. Now, look, there's a lot of people talking about this online that John Tavares is going to be an insert NHL team name here. This is why I think Montreal is actually an excellent fit for Tavares, money-wise and situationally. First of all, we underpin everything by saying the NHL salary cap is going up next season. How much it's going up, we don't know. It looks like bare minimum, it's going to go up $3 million. At max, it could go up $7 million. So what we're going to do for our purposes is say we're going to meet in the middle. We're going to say the NHL salary cap, which currently sits at $75 million, is going to go up by $5 million to a psychologically satisfying $80 million even. Need a little power up for this one. My glass is fogged up. I really hope the camera caught that. So, John Tavares, center for the New York Islanders, one of the best players in the league. He's in the last year of his deal with the Islanders that's currently paying him only $5.5 million. Guys, Thomas Plekanec is getting paid more than John Tavares this season. What seems to be consensus about John Tavares' next contract for next season and beyond is that he's probably going to command at least double what he's being paid right now. I would say $10 million a year for John Tavares would be a discount contract. Right now, the New York Islanders, the team that have John Tavares, only have about $2 million in cap space. But they've got around $32 million coming off the books heading into next season, which includes Tavares. So that should be easy math, right? They got $30 million coming off. They only got to pay him maybe as low as 10, so what's the big deal? But you also have to look at what is coming back. What will be coming back? What would they be stupid to not bring back? And that's where the Islanders run into trouble. Let's take a look at Josh Bailey, 28 years old, a pending unrestricted free agent. He's having a career season this season, up over 50 points, about to eclipse what I believe is his career high in points as one of John Tavares' wingers. But he's going to get paid. He's going to need to get paid. Realistically, Josh Bailey could command $7 to $8 million on the open market, which is a raise of about $4 million, $5 million, somewhere in that range. Let's take a look at Brock Nelson, only 26 years old, still going to be a restricted free agent next season for this upcoming contract that he's going to have to negotiate. He's only about a half point a game player on average, so he's not exactly lighting the league on fire, but he's still going to be due a pay raise from what he's getting paid right now, which I believe is like $2.5 million. Those are just the forwards. Let's take a look at the defensemen. Calvin DeHaan, Thomas Hickey, Ryan Pulock, who's a restricted free agent and only 23 years old. All three of these players are playing for raises or long-term deals. They're key players on the Islanders defense, which I don't think it makes the Islanders a better team to let these players go. So if you look at these players as all like probably going to get an additional $1 million, $2 million, $2.5 million, something like that on what they're being paid right now, that could be up to another $7.5 million, $8 million that's going to have to come out of what's not returning in order to pay these players, that it doesn't make the team better if they don't bring these players back. If Halak leaves, they're still going to have to sign a backup goaltender. They're still going to have to fill gaps being left by these departing players that we're talking about. How much money are they really going to have lying around to offer John Tavares in a contract extension when he's probably going to command bare minimum $10 million? Most people are saying 12 is a more realistic number. Montreal sits right now, today, with $7.2 million in empty cap space. Just space that's just sitting there. Thomas Plekanec, the player we mentioned earlier, who's making more money than John Tavares this season, his contract is up at the end of this season. That's $6 million off the books. Maybe they bring him back next season, but Plekanec is 35. He is not going to make that kind of money next season. What I think is more realistic is Montreal actually trades Thomas Plekanec at the trade deadline, retains 50% salary, get a draft pick in return or something like that. And of the players that Montreal has on expiring contracts, the only one that's really due for a raise, I think, is Phillip Danault. Phillip Danault is probably going to get in somewhere in the area of $2.5 to $3 million, and I would be really comfortable at that cap hit. Do the math with me. $7 million in cap space. Cap going up $5 million. Thomas Plekanec's $6 million off the book. That's $18 million. Carey Price's extension, got to take that into consideration, so you got to knock 4 off. Now we're at 14. $2 million pay raise probably for Phillip Danault. I think that's fair. Now we're at 12. If I was an NHL general manager and I had $12 million to play with and I desperately needed a number 1 center, John Tavares is at the top of my wish list. Marc Bergevin realizes at this point he's playing for his job. If I'm Marc Bergevin, I'm getting John Tavares signed. I could be totally wrong. My math could be screwy, and none of it might make sense. I could be 100% wrong, but I like it. Okay, folks, that is going to wrap it up for today's Finest for January 28th, 2018. Look for your next episode, probably Tuesday, Wednesday, possibly, somewhere in that range. Again, give it a couple of days for something interesting to happen. Just another reminder, make sure you watch my Super Bowl 52 prediction video because I'm giving you the chance to win a $10 credit code for Nerd Teas. You've also got my promo code BWFinest. It's in the description to the video below. Save yourself 15% on your Nerd Teas purchase. We're going to give you a free $10 if you win one of the codes. I can't make it any easier than that. nerdteas.ca, promo code BWFinest. Nerd Teas fuels everything that I do on this channel. Thanks to Nerd Teas. And make sure you watch that video. Get yourself a chance to win. Of course, we want you to come back. So here's your hook for next time. It's basically going to be all wrestling. I'm giving in to Robbie Vino in the comments section. Said, hey, talk more wrestling. That's exactly what we're going to do. We had NXT last night. We've got the Royal Rumble tonight. And what in the world is Vince McMahon thinking? You'll get my take on the return of the XFL. All right, folks, that's it for me. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled, as always, by Nerd Teas, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Today's Finest.